Dear listeners, before we get started with this episode, I'd like to apologise for three things. One, when we're recording this episode, I was horrendously ill, so you might catch Black Death from listening to this. I hope you don't. Two, a bit of a horrendous recording quality for the first 45 minutes or so. I can't apologise enough for it. I've had a bit of a nightmare trying to edit it. And three, there was a fair bit of speculation about the further Marvel Universe at the end of this episode, and I am aware that much of it is now outdated. I've tried to edit down as much of it as possible whilst leaving you with something to listen to that's still quite enjoyable. Bearing that in mind, let's get on with the show, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what is officially episode number 6 of the If It Moves Critique It podcast. We're sorry. May I first start by saying it's been a while since we've been recorded an episode for you.
Don't lie, we're not sorry at all.
I'm sorry.
I've missed it. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm apologetic. Please don't leave us, listeners.
Over 65 Ethiopian women who are our top listeners on our YouTube channel. We need you, please. Yeah, I don't know whether I told you about that, Charlotte, but on the 5th episode on YouTube, it's had 12 views, 7 of which have come from Ethiopia. 5 of those 7 are in the 65 and over category, and they're all women, according to YouTube. So
That is.
I don't even know what's going on there. Not a proper episode, but just a long talk about that wonderful early summer event that was the opening of Avengers Assemble, or if you're not from the United Kingdom, the Queen's Great Land, the home of the Empire. It's called something like, I don't know, the Avengers something. Incidentally, the reason why the name had to change was because of that wonderful 1960s television show about some man in a hat called The Avengers. If anyone's ever seen that, you'll know what I'm talking about. His hat was rather stylish. So, this will be a long episode, not long, but a long section devoted entirely to our thoughts on the Avengers and a little bit on the future of the Marvel Universe. So both of your usual delicious voices from Charlotte and Alex, they're both joining me here. Alright then, arbitrary score time. Just, satisfy people on Rotten Tomatoes. Alex, give me just the arbitrary score you have awarded Avengers out of 10 things. That's not a number.
Very funny. I'd give it an 8.
An 8, fair enough. What about you, Charlotte?
In much the same way that some artwork is priceless, Avengers is unscorable.
Okay.
I'm a fangirl about this for an hour, so you may want to be prepared for this.
Dear listeners.
I nearly said something really awful then, but I'm not going to.
Dear listeners, you may wish to know that when Charlotte was in the cinema watching Avengers, not only did she make noises when certain things happened, I don't think she was consciously aware that she was making them, but she did babble incoherently for about half an hour afterwards just about how awesome was that film. It was a sight to behold. She couldn't be more of a fangirl about this. I, however, enjoy being the harsh-faced, razor-witted cynic about everything, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, which in today's scoring system is basically the same as 0. So people who think a 7 out of 10 is 0 need to, reassess their priorities. I have 2 issues with this film, and that's it. The rest of it I think was absolutely stunning. So on that note, let's jump into to what we thought was good about it. I think one of the best things about Avengers was, apart from the whole, isn't this wonderful, we've set this up over whatever it was, 5 films, and brought it all together in such a fantastic is not a word, spectacular and fantastic way. It's just that the individual characters themselves are so strong in their home native films, Iron Man in Iron Man, Captain America, things like that, that to bring them all together in one universe and have them still have all of their traits, all of their character and appeal, everything that makes them in 1 2.5 hour film was really a solid achievement. I thought.
Yeah, just time-wise, you're going to have about 10 minutes maximum for each character to remain at the core of their character set up in their own film. It all still managed to keep it. It was really, really impressive.
Actual figure, Iron Man is on screen as Iron Man for 26 minutes.
Wow.
In a 2.5 hour film.
Is that the bit at the end when they're all together? Sort of?
I don't know. I haven't seen the shawarma scene because it's not in the European cut, which is a bit of a shame.
No, the big fight.
Oh, the fight scene. Oh yeah, no, that's included. That's Iron Man as Iron Man, not as Tony Stark.
Okay.
I'm not sure how long Tony Stark was in, but Robert Downey Jr. was on set filming for 3.5 days for this film, which is utterly ridiculous.
How is that even possible?
Because he's never present whenever Iron Man is present.
Right.
All of the non-combat stuff, Stark isn't really in much, and he's apparently such an easy actor to work with that he does most things very quickly. So,
Plus, it's Robert Downey Jr. He actually doesn't sleep even. He just takes amphetamines and just keeps on going through the night. And all the other Avengers are like, I'm tired now. And he's like, no, I have a quip. We will do this quip.
I will call people Quims in a 12A film, and that will be fine.
But his blood has actually turned to dust, like the guy from the first Hellboy film, because he's been eating nothing but amphetamines for so long.
That really quite frightened me in that film. I was quite disturbed by that. I thought Iron Man Stark, as a character, still managed to carry it across. The two things I was most impressed with was his relationship with Bruce Banner. I thought was so genuine and so snappy, and really quite sort of the only real way that he could have shown respect and admiration to somebody else, because he's such an arrogant character, and so sort of, look at me, I do everything perfectly, fuck the rest of you, I'm gonna buy strawberries in my Lamborghini or whatever. That the interactions he was having with Banner, I thought were really quite nice. Things sort of like when he was saying, it's like, oh really, you could you like that sort of thing? You could come over to my house and play with my toys. I've got a whole research division on level 11 you could have, sort of thing. It seemed like a very warm and very caring moment between the two of them.
It's really clever how the only thing that Tony Stark would actually respond to is something he values within himself.
Yes.
His intelligence, which is nice.
The other thing I enjoyed about the writing of the Iron Man character in Avengers was just the sheer ballsiness of wandering onto the helicarrier. By the way, we should probably blanket spoiler this entire thing. I think people have seen that anyway.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about the ending at some point, so...
It doesn't end. I'm sorry. If anyone goes, oh, it's an Avengers hour, they're not going to talk about what happens in the Avengers. Then they're too stupid to be listening.
So the other thing that really quite highlighted his arrogance was coming straight aboard the helicarrier, wandering around, not really listening to anything, asking Kobe Smulders' character, whilst he places his left hand over his left eye, how the hell does Nick see all this? And Kobe Smulders responding with, he swivels. Or was it he turns his head or something like that? That made me laugh. But to then go straight from that, straight into stealing all of their information, was just like, well, yeah, that's Tony, isn't it? Nobody else can do anything as good as he can do it. And that is such a good character trait, because not only can it sometimes turn out to be, oh, holy crap, yes, you can do things amazingly, vis-a-vis Iron Man suit Mark 1. Isn't that insane? And then it can also be used as a character flaw, the arrogance that nobody could ever possibly build anything better than you, vis-a-vis the end of Iron Man suit, the end of Iron Man 1, when Obadiah is beating the dick out of him with the improved suit. Gosh, what is that guy's name? It's not War Machine, it's the Warmonger. There we go.
I say Obadiah Springfield, but...
So I think Iron Man he still managed to carry on being Iron Man, still got enough time. Another brilliant bit when he hacks into the audio feed when Cap is talking to Loki in the square in Stuttgart, and it just starts playing AC/DC over the audio feed, and then he just swings in and just twats Loki. I was like, yep, Stark's back, good. But thankfully, very thankfully, Whedon really managed to balance that and the film, so it wasn't just Iron Man 4, as it were, with some friends. It was well balanced. I think Thor was exactly the same as Thor. He was just, they moved the character across, copied and pasted, and it's a very good character. Chris Hemsworth really did, I want to say nail it, because I don't know much about the character, but he does have the very, what is this? Coffee. I like it. Get me another. Very sort of high and mighty, superior and arrogant side, because obviously he is a god. Just nailed down, and it brought it across into a film where you've got such other big personalities like Tony Stark, and they managed to butt up against each other but not dominate each other, which was good. Again,
I never did think someone who's, so, rightly arrogant, he's a demigod, but also with this really sort of eloquent, otherworldly, godlike way of speaking would work in any kind of setting, but it really does. I think the writers are very clever.
It works even better in some of the comics, because one of the comic I recently watched is called Thor Unborn, and basically it not to spoil any of the comic plot. I think it's an older plot, but there is a cycle going on in the universe which causes everybody to get reborn every now and then, and every time the Asgardians are reborn again, they come back weaker. But in this timeline, Thor is not just Thor, God of Thunder. He's also, in the Thor film, the Doctor that Jane, played by Natalie Portman, uses to give Thor an alias is actually a person who Thor possesses. He's an actual person working in the world as a doctor for Doctors Without Borders, but he carries a wooden stick around with him, which is Mjolnir, and basically he can just transform himself into Thor whenever he wants to.
Struck by a bolt of lightning to effect the change, or is it just like...
It's as at a whim, basically.
Wow.
And in the comic, he's working in Uganda, I think it is, doing aid work, and then he just rends a mighty chasm between the two warring factions as Thor, and it's really quite good. So yeah, as for your statement that it's good to see a character of that sort of scope working in a human environment, as it were, and it would have been better but more complicated to have introduced that angle to it. But I think that's the only real way you can do it. You have to minimize them down. Just like in the Thor film where he gets stripped of his power, he just becomes a human. So it's sort of a way of segueing the two universes together.
Just to go back very slightly about between the relationship of Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, I really liked how their friendship was kind of one-sided. Tony Stark's very clearly got this sort of almost puppy dog-like admiration for Bruce Banner, and yet Bruce Banner's slightly guarded against Tony Stark's affections, because firstly because he wants to be closed off, he doesn't want to get close to anyone because of his Hulk burden, he doesn't want anyone to get hurt, but also because Tony always does come across as a bit immature, even through all of his arrogance, and it's quite nice just to have this sort of still powerfully intelligent but more emotionally mature, maybe not later on in the film, but more emotionally mature character sort of playing off each other. It's really good.
Yes, no, I can definitely see. He's almost like slightly cooler, as in not as aggressive version of Tony Stark, because he's got the intelligence but not the ambition or the arrogance about him, which is good. I loved their relationship. I really liked Mark Ruffalo's Banner. I think he is the best.
I was just going to say, I'm proud of him for doing so well after coming in as a third different actor, as a third actor playing the same character.
He absolutely nailed the calm and nerdy side of the character, which Norton and Banner just failed to do, because they're both much too macho as a human to give a decent enough comparison to the Hulk, I found. Because they may not be stacked, but the characters themselves, the actors, themselves, never really gave me enough of a feeling that they were themselves sort of just a meek, feeble little scientist who then becomes the Hulk. They were sort of reasonable men who had this issue. Like you see Edward Norton in the favelas in Brazil, running around being chased by various people, and he's quite stacked. And then Mark Ruffalo seems to be wearing a collared shirt and looking quite smart and like he does belong in a lab as opposed to deep in Brazil, or as you see at the beginning of the trailer for Incredible Hulk, wandering around in the Arctic and things like that, which is good. I thought they did a better job of it, and I enjoyed his humour style being quite self-deprecating.
I quite liked the other two Hulk films. I mean, Eric Banner's voice was very soft-spoken, and when he's human and he puts his hand around Betty's throat, I was genuinely shocked because I didn't see any kind of great aggression in him when he was human. And I don't know, Edward Norton, I still kind of view him as kind of scrawny because of seeing him running around in his underwear in Fight Club. It's kind of burned into my memory, so I bought that as well. But
we can't talk about Banner without talking about Hulk as well. I think this is by far the best Hulk. Whatever your feelings are on the best Banner, this is by far the best Hulk, in my opinion. He managed to capture not only the raw aggression and anger that is in the first transformation on the helicarrier, in every sort of clench of fist and snort and tense of muscle, it was really, really palpable, as opposed to just, here's a transformation happening, it's hurting his bones. He's not a werewolf. He's not transforming from a human to a werewolf. He's transforming because of anger and rage and not being able to suppress it any longer. And he looked fantastic. The face finally looked right to me, having Mark Ruffalo's face done. In Edward Norton and Eric Banner, they didn't look right to me.
Well, I guess this is the first time that the actor who's played Bruce Banner has actually done the motion capture for the Hulk.
Oh, right, I didn't know that. I thought they just used their face and, I don't know, got Andy Serkis to do it. I dearly love that man, but he's so ubiquitous.
I think he's earned it, though. He was great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was surprised that they chose to do King Kong, and he was amazing in that. So.
The only criticism I have... Sorry, I don't have any criticism of the Hulk. Not at all, sorry. But the one thing that I was really glad they introduced, or Joss Whedon or Tony Feige... Tony Feige? I can't remember his name. Someone Feige. Not the Anthony Feige. Who's the head of Marvel, they decided to introduce the element of control that Banner has over the Hulk, as opposed to it being a case of panic, don't make me angry, oh no, I'm a Hulk and I've destroyed all of Manhattan trying to look for Freddie Prinze Jr. because he's trying to have sex with my girlfriend. Actual plot in a Hulk comic, which Charlotte so kindly lent to me. And actually throughout that comic, he's really sexual in the things he says as the Hulk. It's quite wrong.
Yeah, that can't be good. I'm not sure I actually want to read that. That's kind of gross.
I'm glad that wasn't in it. But what I am glad is that in this film, when Banner changes, it's not a case of, oh no, here we go. It's a case of, I'm just going to let go. And that beautiful, probably the best moment of the entire film is how are you going to turn it on, or whatever Black Widow says. And he says, I'm always angry. And then suddenly, blah, blah, and the fact that he had A, control over it, and B, when he was the Hulk, he had control. He had ability to speak, to listen, to reason, to understand when other people are in danger, which he doesn't have further than, for some reason, try and have sex with Liv Tyler in the first two films. He doesn't really have any sort of understanding or reason. Incidentally, it really pissed me off they changed the Hulk, but they didn't change who Betty Ross was played by. Because, anyway. That's beside the point. So yeah, I think spot on. Favourite character of the film, which is...
I don't know, because in the beginning he's all like, oh god, no, I'm in a flying space station, this is all going to go terribly wrong, I'm going to get really angry and punch holes and things, and this is not going to go well when we're in a thin atmosphere. And basically saying, I don't have control of this. And then he doesn't. He gets angry, and he gets pissed off, and then he falls from the sky, and clearly he has some defining moment that we do not see as he's plummeting towards the ground. And then he hits, and then he gets up, and then he says, shit's going down in that town over there, but it's okay, because now I have control. How?
I can answer that question straight away. It was all to do with the fact Loki's on the helicarrier in the pod, and you see Black Widow having a conversation with him, wheedling out the fact that he's going to use the Hulk to destroy the helicarrier. The staff that he has, which at one point Banner is holding without realizing it, is exerting a mental control over him and causes him to lose control or weakens his resolve considerably. And that is a staff that was given to him by Thanos, and it has mind control powers, which is how he's able to, obviously, like, you take Hawkeye and Stellan Skarsgård's character, Stidvig. So, in answer to your question, I have no data, I've assumed that it's because the staff has eroded his control, and that's why just the littlest thing sets it off.
Then why in the beginning of the film is that I'm going to live in this backwater place and be a doctor? He still doesn't trust himself there. It's not the fact that whether the mind control staff was working on him or not, it's the fact that he has no real confidence in himself. He doesn't say, yeah, I'm okay with it, I'm fine, I understand how it works. It's not what ticks him off, it's the fact that suddenly he goes, yes, now I understand this, now I know how to bring it to the surface in a controlled way. It's not what starts him off as a Hulk, it's how he suddenly, we don't see the transformation in his personality where he goes, yeah, now I understand this, now I can do this, I know I'm okay with this, I don't think I'm going to pound you all into the ground.
I agree, and the only thing I can suggest to that is it's on the cutting room floor and it will come out in the director's cut. That's what I can hope, because 47 minutes got cut from this film, so it'll probably be in that.
I think Bruce Banner always, like from the start of the Avengers film, I think he always knew how to become the Hulk at will, and that the stuff when he's on the helicarrier played a part in him losing control. But I think the main thing which made him lose control was Loki provoking him and making him more angry. And when he is turning into the Hulk voluntarily, it's because he can do that whenever he wants, because he is always angry. He doesn't trust himself to just let go of hating the world and smash the person that he's having a calm conversation with. I think he just knows he can only use it in a situation where there's an army to smash. I think it is completely under his control, and I must admit I really didn't I thought that was kind of a big plot hole when I first saw the film, but I came to that conclusion after I'd seen the film. I had to think about it for a while. But yeah.
I mean, I hope it is something that is addressed in the deleted scenes, because up until when Charlotte pointed that out to me, I hadn't considered there being a missing scene, but now I'd quite like to have seen one, like a moment between Black Widow and Hulk, Black Widow and Banner when she apologizes or something, and he sort of has a revelation and then says, I understand, thank you, but now I've got it under control, sort of thing. That's a sort of scene I would like to see.
Yeah, that first scene where he changes. My favorite bit about that scene was that I genuinely believed that Black Widow was afraid, which I was not expecting. I thought it was done so well.
I think Scarlett Johansson wasn't bad, actually.
Yeah.
For a bottom tier Avenger who doesn't really have any business being there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the presence of both Black Widow and Hawkeye. I know people rage about Hawkeye all the time, but like it wasn't like let's go to Black Widow or Hawkeye to take a break from the real superheroes, and the audience is going to be dull for this 10 minutes, but let's suck it up. I genuinely wanted to hear their stories, and it was...
Well, I would put that down to the fact that Whedon has an irrefutable history of writing solid female characters. He just knows how to make somebody a character who is female, as opposed to a female character, someone who isn't defined by the fact they're a woman. And so it wasn't all, I'm in love with one of you, I have an arse, look at me shake it. Look at me be sexy in leather. That was just a side product of the fact the costume department kind of loved her body a little bit. He actually wrote a character with a backstory, with emotion, with interest for the audience. As you say, you weren't upset by watching a Black Widow when she was on screen, because she genuinely was more than just tits and arse, which I was incredibly grateful for. One of the first things I criticised the film for after watching the trailer is that god-awful, stupid martial arts move, where a female actress who is in film because sexy jumps on a man's neck, uses her thighs, and then throws him to the ground by swinging around his face a lot. And it's like, oh my god, her vagina's near his face, isn't it so hot? And I'm just like, if that happens in every single scene, I'm going to kick off. And thankfully, it didn't even happen in the film. It seemed to be only a trailer shot. So I think that's just testament to how Whedon writes female characters, to be honest. He understands how to make somebody a character as opposed to just a sex interest in a film. Something that I don't think Nolan knows how to do, looking at the interviews with Catwoman so far. But that's a completely different franchise. So yeah, I thought she was good as well.
Well, it does bring up the fact that Batman is the sort of competing superhero film, which I still have trouble getting my head around, because, to my mind, the Nolan Batman films are not superhero films. They're just films. They're just, I don't know.
They're documentaries.
Yeah. We're really going to see with the Man of Steel a new dark Superman style, as in Dark Knight style Superman film, hopefully, with the origins and all that sort of stuff being done a hell of a lot better. Obviously being Zack Snyder, and the Dark Knight production team, so the producers and editors, are also working on Man of Steel, so it should be more in that vein. I can't believe
that now he's missed his chance. No, I'm kidding. I'll give it a chance, but I don't have high hopes for the Man of Steel.
It can't be worse than Superman Returns.
I still think Superman Returns had redeeming qualities. I think it wasn't very good, but it wasn't completely devoid of quality.
Anyway, that's a different franchise. We can talk about that at a later point. You mentioned that you enjoyed watching Hawkeye and Black Widow on screen. Forgive me, dear listeners, if you disagree with this, but I have a tiering system for the Avengers based on sort of reasoning for them to be there. And at the top you have Iron Man, Thor, as the two who have the most reason to be there, the most abilities, the most they can add to the team. So they're like the top tier, sorry. Then below that is the Hulk and Captain America, who are just really strong and not a lot else. And then below that you have Hawkeye, who just has a bow. And then below that you have Black Widow, who just has leather and a 9mm. Now that was a very poor assessment based on the film, because they all had an integral role and they all had enough screen time to make them worthwhile. But Hawkeye and Black Widow have always been, in my opinion, lesser superheroes, sort of on like the B list in the Avengers. But I would say that Black Widow certainly proved me wrong. The character, at least in this film, was a lot more than I expected it to be. And I think Hawkeye, as much as I completely and utterly disagree with him as a superhero, in inverted commas, in this film and in this film alone, Renner did a great job with him. He was especially good as an antagonist for a while. I genuinely can see why he's been given the job as the new Bourne lead, because he has that really quite efficient strength about him, sort of that calm strength that's going to be proved so good in those sort of films. But there was a lack of development, and he seemed very 2D. But apart from that, I thought he wasn't awful. He wasn't amazing. He was certainly not as good as the other characters, but he wasn't a massive black spot on the team. He was just background. It's how I would say it. What thoughts people think about that?
It could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been.
They could have had the Wasp and Hank Pym in it. They
could have had a tiny, tiny girl flying inside Hulk's brain to give him an aneurysm. Yes, happens in a comic.
I don't know. I felt a distinct lack of Ant-Man in the Avengers. I would want some more Ant-Man.
Yeah, there's only one superhero in the Avengers team we haven't actually mentioned, and there's quite an obvious reason why. I felt Captain America. This is interesting. This is such a double-edged sword with this. Captain America in the Avengers had no development, no real funny dialogue, no sort of in-depth scenes with anybody, apart from striding in and being all leaderish and buoying everybody up, which is his job, to be honest, and then went about being quite good at punching a few guys. And that's double-edged because it makes the character seem not really that important in the mainstay of things up against Hulk and Iron Man and Thor and things like that. But also at the same time, really does set up the mindset for him being lost in the modern world and not really knowing what's going on and what he's supposed to be doing. And all he really sees is a very black and white situation. Shit, there's an enemy. They're coming for us. Right, I better organise this the best I can and sort of sod all the one-liners that Tony Stark's making. I mean, at one point he even says, "Hey, I got that one," and things like that. He's just sort of highlighting the fact. So I think that was almost intentionally bad. And I thought it was bad when I was watching it, but then sort of you think on it, you think, actually, no, that's a clever decision to sort of play down his development because he doesn't really know what's going on, having slept for 60 years. So all I'm saying is, I'm just saying it seemed to be done on purpose.
Well, yeah, of course it is, because how many more Captain America films are they planning on making? I don't want to waste all their development on the Avengers film.
No, good point. And that was actually what I was going to lead up to later on, is saying that this mindset of Captain America leads straight into Captain America 2, which is a film which is going to be based around him being this, to use an old phrase, fish out of water, floundering around in the fish metaphor, some sort of fish pun. This is out of my league now. Sorry, I will stop now. Sort of in the modern world, being sort of abandoned in the modern world, not really knowing where to go. So it was leading his way up to it.
For the same reason that Black Widow's character did get quite a lot of development, because, you know, how many Black Widow, Hawkeye individual films are they really going to make? And they've got superhero films. So.
Indeed. Okay, well, let's talk about the villain. Let's talk about Loki. So Loki, rocked up in Thor, was incredibly well played by Tom Hiddleston. I do like his Loki. And in all of Thor, you get the sort of camaraderie between them, and he still doesn't quite fit in, and then turns out he's a frost giant, and then he quite resents it, and all this stuff going on, and then suddenly conquer the universe. And it was a case of going from exacting revenge because of a very personal issue, because he had his kingdom stolen and his homeland destroyed by the Asgardians and all this sort of very, very relatable issue, to suddenly, just going to invade Earth. And it was a very, very comic booky move. It was a very much over-the-top villain. There was not really much motivation other than let's kill all the things. And that is perfect for a comic book film. Discuss.
Yes, it is perfect for a comic book film with this many characters in it.
Do you not think, though? Because had it been all this exposition about revenge on Earth or revenge on Thor or him needing something or whatever, but no, it was just a case of, I got the Tesseract. Oh, the other. Do you want the Tesseract? Yes. Will you give me an army for it? Yes. What are you going to do with the army? Invade Earth. For what reason? Mumble, mumble. And it was fine, because you don't need exposition. They needed a villain, and it was again one of those things that whilst I was watching the film, I thought that was really badly done because there's no reason really for him to have come to Earth. There's no reason. He's just turned up and started dicking about because he can. And then I started to think, after I'd watched the film a couple of days later, that maybe that was intentional. Maybe that was precisely the reason why they'd skipped over it, because he doesn't need a reason, because he's just inherently nuts. So I thought Loki was.
Well, I think his reason is that he sees all humans as weak, and he wants to rule no matter who he's ruling.
Sure.
And even if his stick does shoot lightning bolts, he can't do it by himself, so he needs an army. And
yeah.
There happened to be one lying around in a space portal, so.
And what are you going to do? You're going to go to one of the many civilizations that are apparently hanging around in space with all their advanced technology.
Their name is the Chitauri.
That's not what I was talking about. But, are you going to go and you're going to try and subjugate them? You're going to go, look at you guys, bless you. You try really hard and Facebook's doing so well. Apart from that, you really got nothing. They've got 5 people in the entirety of America that can try and take Loki on. One of them is his own brother. I'm pretty sure that he kind of went, well, this works. That we're good. We're not that good against his technology. We're like the perfect enemy. We're not advanced enough that we pose no threat, but we're not, amoeba crawling on the ground. There's really no point in enslaving.
Yeah, that's true.
I see his motivation. I would, if I was him, totally take it over.
Speaking of technology, obviously all the technology that comes, as Thor explains in Thor, it's what you people used to call magic and what you call science. In my place, they are one and the same. So it's all just advanced technology, things like the Bifrost and stuff like that. So the idea of Phase 2 weaponry, which S.H.I.E.L.D. has been developing using the Tesseract and the designs left over from Hydra in order to make Tesseract weaponry to fight to fight Loki, to fight the Chitauri, there we go, or whatever, are quite an important little teaser, I thought, in this film, because it causes a little bit of tension with Captain America and such, which I feel is probably going to lead on to something in either Captain America 2 or Avengers 2, I'm not sure. But I thought that was quite interesting. It definitely showed the darker side of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury, the slightly roguish side of it, and then when he does the thing with the baseball cards, he's like, look at Agent Coulson's blood all over the baseball cards. You need to avenge him, sort of thing.
Just for anyone that hasn't seen the film, Agent Coulson doesn't die. He just gets really bad nosebleeds when he's stressed.
Yeah. Phil? I thought his first name was Agent. Brilliant line. Yeah, so I thought it really did highlight the slightly dark and manipulative side of Nick Fury, which could potentially become more and more prevalent as he sort of cajoles various superheroes into doing what needs to be done, quote, in his opinion.
Yeah, but I really like that they still maintained the sort of goodness at his core, because, when he's talking to sort of shady council people, and they're like, yeah, just nuke it, we're pulling out, and he's fighting to save innocent lives, no matter how.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten that.
So, yeah, he may have sort of dubious methods, but I like that we can be sure that he's a good guy.
Yeah, I think that's the entire point that they put them in there. There was really no reason for them to have further government officials just starting things up with red tape, but they have to. We're going to question Nick Fury's motives. We're going to go, well, we lied to him a little bit there, we manipulated him a bit there. If we're looking going, well, at least he's trying to do it for good reasons. And then you've got the people in the suits going, let's just nuke it. You're like, okay, no. Look, he's trying. He's doing his best. He's still a positive character because we've got something else to look at and compare him to.
He's blaming his bosses.
At least he tried, you stupid suits.
I can see what you're saying. I don't disagree with it, but the view could be had that it's just a case of, no, I definitely wasn't a Nazi. I was just pressured into being a Nazi by the bigger Nazis.
It's never a question of him saying he's pushed into this by his bosses. It's a question of us seeing what his bosses are saying is going to happen, and us seeing what Nick Fury decides to do with that information. So, if anything, it's the other way around. He says, well, I've been told to nuke this town. I'm probably not going to. For one thing, I lost the launch codes. I left them in the briefcase somewhere, and I got robbed at a diner. I don't know where I put them.
I love how he's just such a smart ass to people who are clearly supposed to be ridiculously high in government office.
So many times I wanted there to just be Pulp Fiction references thrown into this film. I just absolutely love it if, Loki was like tinkering on something and then there was just like a door bashed down. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Or something along those sort of lines. It would just be brilliant. Anyway, yeah.
This is the first film we've actually seen Nick Fury do anything action-based. He fired a pistol at Loki trying to get away, and fired a goddamn rocket launcher at his own plane.
That was brilliant. I really like that bit. He was like, no, fuck you lot, fuck all the red tape, just give me that. It's
a bit useless though. He must have. Okay, maybe he didn't know that there was another plane right there, but they didn't really need to put that in. It's just so we can see that Nick Fury is still kind of awesome.
Exactly, even with an eye patch. I find it so funny because if you look in some of the 70s and 60s comics with which Nick Fury's in, he's in a blue jumpsuit with white boots, white gloves, and a white belt. And he kind of looks a little bit like number 2 from the Austin Powers films. The second in command?
Yeah.
He's got sort of like a sort of wavy brown hair and a big thick set jaw, and he's all sort of white. Very, very white. And now suddenly we've got Samuel L. Jackson playing him. It's brilliant. Of course, obviously, in various other iterations of the Marvel Universe, like the Ultimates, he is actually black. I wanted to talk about the Chitauri a little bit.
Really, they were deliberately designed to be faceless. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, there are 2 problems I have with them. 1, they were the only problem with the film, in my opinion. And 2, there was so much more they could have done with them that they've chosen, probably for reasons of either length or just needing less film, so they could put more funny in. But on the Marvel wiki, I just read a couple of points about the Chitauri. They are described as the immune system of the universe, who are categorically hate and seek out to destroy all disorder and free will. Each one of them is an individual shapeshifter. They all possess limited strength, but some of the sort of higher-ups have super strength rivaling that of Captain America. They have been trying to invade Earth for hundreds of years, most recently helping the Nazis develop nuclear technology and introducing mind-controlling narcotics during the 60s. Lol. And I just feel like they could really have made more of this, more of the characters than just, oh look, grey aliens. They're grey and they're riding on jets and scooters and have brought some sort of giant worms with them. The Leviathan, right? I fucking love that thing. I really wish there'd only been one. It completely lost all impact when there was more than one. I'd much rather have seen a 15-minute long session of them trying to beat one of them than in the final fight scene them killing, I think in total was like 6.
That was so much better.
Really? Oh, it's been
the thing is, it's never going to be fleshed out enough. I prefer it the way they did it because, yeah, they could have spent ages giving us loads of motivation for the villain, but essentially they're faceless people who are...
They are literally
real villain is
faceless girls.
Yeah. But they're not important. The important one in there is Loki. He's the driving force behind why they're here and all the intricacies of his plan to take over the world. So that's fine. We've got Loki. We've had him developed in one film, so we understand what he's doing there. And then the rest of them, it was cannon fodder, basically. I like the fact that they went, oh look, we've sent this big thing. They don't have time enough to make just one massively intimidating monster where we're going to worry, they're never going to handle this. It would have been a dragged out fight scene if there was just one of them. You would have been there for ages going, look, how many of you are there? You've all got these superpowers, just deal with the big space whale. And I like the fact that they kind of fooled you into saying, oh yeah, well, you've defeated this one, but
with one part.
You're like, is that it? That's all we're getting? And then they're like, no, hundreds.
I actually said that in the cinema, I'm pretty sure. I was like, is that... No, not Space Whale. I was like, is that it? One punch from the Hulk. I mean, granted, best scene in the film. I mean, I thought, in my opinion, it would have been cool to see each individual hero take on a Leviathan. But
they did do pretty much every different combat combination. Which was good.
I'm not saying it would make a good film. I'm just saying that's what I'd like to see.
No, but it does. It makes a good combination. You can see that the Avengers get to bounce off each other there, rather than the Hulk punching out one of them. And we all go, right, so the Hulk got in the killing blow for that one. So he gets 10 points, and you get 5 points for doing it. It's like, you all get to see how they deal with them in their own special ways.
I think
Tony Stark,
like how the whole film was set up. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I've loved Joss Whedon. I've loved him for ages, but I must admit I was kind of doubting his ability to write all these characters how they are in such a short time space, and he still did it. But if the cost for that is that there's not really very much exposition for the army, the enemies, I think I can make that sacrifice. And the whole fight at the end is about the Avengers bouncing off each other in the way that they fight, rather than look how bad these enemies are.
I think Charlotte did nail it, saying that Loki had all the exposition in the other film, was set up as the villain, and he just needed a flooding army to invade. That was it. And it isn't important to develop it. The point I was more making is they seem like such an interesting force that it's a shame they haven't been developed enough.
But that's the thing, they can bring them back now. With the Avengers, I think the setup for this one, there's going to be an Avengers too, so in that one, they can say, you've already got the basis for how these characters bounce off each other, but this first film it's like an origin story, but it is for the entire group, so they have to spend time going, we need to mix them up, we need to see how they play off each other. So I think it's more of an experiment in that, rather than saying, right, we're going to have, effectively, it's a 2 hour, 2 hour, 10 minutes anyway?
Yeah, I think it's longer than that.
Yeah, but it's over 2 hours. And I think if they'd have started to try and put in too much of the villain, and then they're going to use up all the villain when they could have been doing it on the origin story, they're going to use up all the villain, and then when it comes to the next film, they're going to be like, ooh, what are we going to have now? The potential to expand the Chitauri in the universe is still there. I mean, yeah, sure, there was a nuke that went through a hole, but they'll probably be okay with that. I don't know what they've got, but...
Yeah, they didn't seem to have, like, a home planet or anything there. There was a space station.
Yeah.
And unless that was it, I mean, I'm sure they can bring more of them in, so... And the fact that the other didn't die, neither did Thanos, so there's potential for all them to be dragged in. The other, interestingly enough, voiced by Alexis Denioff. People will know Alexis Denioff as Robin Scherbatsky, who is also in...
They won't know him as Robin Scherbatsky. That's Hocus Pocus.
I had a drop in the middle of my sentence and lost all of my flow.
They will know him as Wesley Wyndham-Pryce from Angel and Buffy, and they'll know him as that.
That's awesome that you got his full name.
A smug newsreader.
What?
What was that, Alex?
I'm just saying, I think it's awesome you got his full name.
Oh yeah.
He's English.
He's not. I spent most of my my lack of third year at uni watching my way through Buffy and Angel, so...
Well, he's English, so he has to have a double-barreled name, just like Anthony Stewart Head has to have a double-barreled name. That's obviously what they thought when they were writing Buffy.
Yeah, but that's Anthony Stewart Head's real name.
I know. That's what I'm saying. They thought, here's a British person, let's write our other British character to have a double-barreled name. I know he's Canadian.
I don't think that Joss Whedon actually starts creating people. I don't think he's got a lab somewhere and he goes, oh, you know what's going to be brilliant? Him. I can use him in so many films. And
that's how we get such realistic characters.
It's also how he gets the same characters in everything.
Oh, that's true. Maybe he has only, 20 tanks, and he has the same sort of personalities assigned to each tank.
Yes. So, we could look forward to seeing the Chitauri come back at some point, hopefully.
Being hopefully, I really didn't like the Chitauri. I mean, I know we're not supposed to...
Yeah, but would you not concede that's because they were poorly developed and had nothing to them other than they were faceless? If they were properly developed, does that not sound like a good army to have the Avengers fighting against? Shapeshifters who infiltrate everything, who hate disorder, want to order everything, basically a bit like the Borg, and who have been trying to invade.
But, going from what I saw from the Avengers, I don't want to see them again.
No, I don't want to see those again. If they are developed more, then I'd like to see more of them. But if they're just brought back as that, then I've no interest in them, to be honest. I think it's unlikely, considering the direction that the rest of the Marvel Universe is taking. But we shall see. In general, what did we think of the plot of Avengers 2? I felt that it was solid. It was quite trite. There wasn't really much new stuff happening. There was the mind control stuff. I didn't expect that to happen. But I thought the whole MacGuffin of, oh look, it's not the Allspark promise. It's just another different cube of ultimate power, and then some fighting over it to be enough to keep everything going. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying it wasn't fantastic. I thought that the plot tied itself up nicely at the end to finish everything off, but to also leave potential for further continuations of the universe. It wasn't all cataclysmic and ending and everybody dying and all this sort of stuff, but it wasn't. And then they all left Earth for apparently no reason. I are the greatest. Futurama reference. Does that sound like a very sentence? Does anyone want to add anything to that? I really enjoyed the first half an hour where they did all the team building stuff though, and it was like all the fighting of the individual characters. That was a little bit of fanboy pandering that I very much enjoyed.
I don't know. The plot seems like a whole series of excuses. I didn't really think the plot sort of was anything. The film was the characters and the action.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
The entire plot was MacGuffin driven, so I mean, like, there's not really a great deal positive about that. I thought it was fine. No sort of nothing majorly wrong with it, but nothing interesting about it either. So.
Yeah, that's spot on what I'm thinking as well. It was sufficient to keep everything going. But there aren't many of the comic book films that I would say had anything further than that. Captain America was very, very cliched, I don't want to say, but very, very recognisable plot. Iron Man 1 and 2 were slightly skitty on plots because they weren't great, but Thor had an interesting plot. But again, they very much take a back seat to snappy dialogue, good-looking action scenes, and lovely character development. So I'm perfectly happy with it.
Probably always going to happen with superhero films because
yeah, it's a problem with the genre.
I wouldn't even say it's a problem with the genre, though. If you wanted that kind of film, then go out and watch that kind of film. Watch an actual drama or political intrigue. I don't need to see, all these. Go out and watch Pirates of the Caribbean 3. That had more twists in it than anything.
I mean,
it's a twisty-turny thing.
Yeah, but I don't need that in my superhero films. I don't need deep, confusing intrigues. I need bad guy, good guy, etc. It's not.
No, I understand. And the minute I said problem, I instantly regretted it because I knew you were going to say this as a very reasonable counterpoint. I think what I meant by problem is people looking to criticise the film will say the plot is a bit shitty.
The thing is, it doesn't matter because you can still get like the whatever you want in the exploration of humanity or the growth in the characters from the rich characters that they've created. So you don't really need plot to do that, which is...
Who needs plot when you've got Puny God, to be honest?
Oh, that bit. That was probably... I don't really want to name a favourite bit, but that might well be my favourite bit in the film because Loki's been such a bastard the entire film, and it's just so blindly arrogant. And even when Thor is trying to reason with him, he's trying to explain that he's not seeing how ruling really is, and he just doesn't listen. And when he kills Coulson, and then the Hulk just comes and wrecks his shit, and is exactly what he deserves. And it was great.
Exactly. It was so well animated as well, because it was 10% faster than I expected it to be. He literally was just wham, 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 and it looked so real. The Hulk looked real for once. In everything he did and the way he moved and the way he acted, he genuinely looked real as opposed to sort of not, as it were. And I think that scene just totally highlighted how brilliant this CGI was on this film. Alex, did you see it in 3D?
Yes, I think forcibly. If I had a choice, I would have seen it in 2D.
Well, I forced Charlotte to go and watch it in 3D with me. Because I was if I'm going to go and see this film, I'm going to go and see it in 3D. And to be honest, I wish I hadn't. There was no redeeming reason to see it in 3D, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I say I told you so? I don't want to say I told you so, but I think I have to.
No, but it's not a case of I made a mistake, because I would have never, ever wanted to be in the position where I hadn't seen it in 3D. I'd much rather see it in 3D and be disappointed by the 3D than see it in 2D and never know what the 3D was actually like. So.
No, see, I'd prefer to have seen it in 2D and then built in my head in 3D. I'd be like, that probably would have been kind of awesome, and then I would have left it at that. Because the problem, when I look back on the Avengers, there is literally one or two bits that I don't like, and it's because of the 3D. Fucking scene, I cannot remember what the hell they're doing, but it's all of them, and they're all weirdly distorted, and you're like, if this had been in 2D, you would have all have been fine, but why are you all standing in that strange way?
Is it when they were rotating around them stood back to back?
Possibly, I don't know. I think they're all looming over the camera for some reason.
Oh yeah, because they're looking at Loki.
Yeah.
No, this is after they beat Loki, and he's like, I yield and stuff, and they're all staring down at his face.
There was one bit where like 3 of the space whales are coming out of the portal all at once, and then the next shot is like from the portal's perspective, and the entire shot was blurry. I was trying to look at the space whale and I couldn't see it. And speaking of puny god, what were one of your guys' favorite like comedy moments from the film?
When he punches Thor.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was just like so Hulk for me. He was like Legolas and Gimli in the Two Towers. I got 2. There are enough for us both, Gimli. And then just like, no, fuck you, Thor. I'm going to be the winner of all of this.
I liked that bit, but I kind of wasn't sure because there was quite a lot of humour around the Hulk, and I wasn't really expecting that. And I don't know, he might be on the verge of taking it too far. And yet, in the same film, he gets this incredibly fearful scene where he might accidentally kill Black Widow. It's crazy.
I really think this film might as well be called Hulk with the Avengers, because Whedon may well have a soft spot for Hulk, or it may just be the way I was watching it, but I thought Hulk had so much. It's probably just a comparison to the other 2 Hulk films. He had so much more to his character, especially in things like, as you say, the fearful moment, and then the regret about it that Banner felt, and then some of the comedy moments, like when Stark is lying on the floor and everybody thinks he's dead, and then Hulk's like, "Blah!" and then he wakes up. I literally nearly fell out of my seat with fright and then giggles. It was so funny. I think he really has written in so many good bits for Hulk to try and make Hulk a memorable character.
That's the thing. It's the same way as Black Widow and Hawkeye having more backstory than they may have needed. Yeah. It's because it's slightly different. Because for Hawkeye and Black Widow, it's because they're not going to have films of their own. We can all accept that. With the Hulk, it's because he has had films of his own, but it's always been a slightly different. It's been a different portrayal. It's been something slightly different. So in this particular universe, in this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, he hasn't technically had the backstory the rest of them do. We know the story of the Hulk better than we know the story of the other ones, but he still needs more building up than necessarily the other ones do.
Definitely.
I would like to. Can I read something from the Wikipedia page, which I think is absolutely brilliant?
Sure.
It's about that. Oh yeah. They were talking about not casting Edward Norton for it, and apparently Mark Ruffalo said, "Yeah, it wasn't a great way for all that to go down, but the way I see it is that Ed has bequeathed this part to me. I look at it as my generation's Hamlet."
Oh, what a brilliant guy! What an absolutely brilliant guy! I think something else that I found funny about this film, funny in ha-ha as well as heartwarmingly entertaining, was the fact that the film wasn't afraid to poke fun at itself and at the characters, usually through the medium of Tony Stark. Just little snips at each other. Like, for example, Cap is giving orders during the battle in wherever it was, probably New York. It's always New York, isn't it? And he's like, you go over there, you, Iron Man, take Hawkeye up to the top of that building over there, and he's like, right, sure, come on, Legolas, and he just grabs him and flies off. I was like, brilliant, just brilliant. I love the not self-deprecating, but it's letting the audience know that it's aware of how funny it is. They've written scenes with a humorous feel and a few one-liners. Sort of an involved feel with a few one-liners, which are good. And obviously, straight after Cap says that, he turns to Hulk and says, Hulk, smash, and Mark Ruffalo's Hulk gets this massive grin on his face. Okay. I think the way Whedon really works well as a writer in situations like this is he doesn't write characters and then say, we could give them a funny line. He writes a character because he thinks the character is funny. Did you
guys catch the little Space Invaders cut where there's a big sort of angry conversation on the helicarrier, and then when all the Avengers walk out of the room, some random grunt just turns on him this really old Space Invaders type game on his computer.
Yeah, Tony Stark points that out. He says, none of you guys are doing anything. That guy over there is playing whatever.
Does he? Oh, I didn't catch Tony Stark's line about that.
Can we talk about Kobe Smulders? Because I thought she was pretty alright, actually. She wasn't given a lot to do, but she was good enough in what she was given to do, and I'd like to see her come back, which I was very, very surprised at.
Is this Kobe Smulders' person from How I Met Your Mother?
Yes. Apparently she made no impression on either of you.
She did, but I didn't really have anything to say about her.
Fair enough. It was only me then.
See, I think the only reason you have anything to say about it, because at first you were like, oh my god, Kobe Smulders, I will kill her. She is in this and I hate her. Whereas I was like, well, she's going to be, I don't really care. So I kind of went into it ambivalent, and I came out of it ambivalent. It wasn't that she didn't make an impression; it was that I didn't expect anything of her, and she delivered that quite well.
Yes, well done you for having the foresight to not get ragey, which is, of course, something I am terminally stressy about. All things to do with Kobe Smulders, really. Well, I think the only thing really I have left to talk about the Avengers is everything but the Avengers. So this sort of like tail end section of the podcast, anything we want to talk about regarding the film before I jump in and start laying some hardcore beats down.
I'm really pissed off with the Bristol cinema that we went to that refused to play that extra clip at the end.
It's no European cinemas played it.
What the hell? I'm really annoyed with Europe then. Fuck Europe.
Which is a shame. She's referring, of course, to the Schwami restaurant scene, in which there is 7 seconds of all of the characters sat around eating Schwami in a restaurant. Instead, I think it's Schwami. I can't remember how you pronounce it. But Schwama, whatever that food stuff is, I've no idea what it is. But there was an article, I think on Empire, about how sales of that food stuff has rocketed since the film. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You can watch it on YouTube if you want, but it's not that important.
Joss Whedon just wanted them, all the Avengers, just to seem bone tired. I think it's a really good idea. But I wouldn't know because I haven't seen it.
I suppose, yeah, that's a good idea. Right, so speaking of end of thingies and spoilers and stuff like that, teasers and stuff, should we have a little bit of a section on the moving forward into the Marvel universe? Because as Kevin Feige keeps saying, the head of Marvel films, keeps saying this is just the first wave of Avengers films and stuff like that. So at current, the filming schedule has 4 films coming out between now, next one going to be Iron Man 3, and 2015, which should be the Avengers 2. And those are going to be, in no particular order, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Captain America 2, and then probably at the end of it, Avengers 2. And I have it on reputable information. All of this, the subsequent information that I'm going to be talking about comes from the wonderful team at Slash Film, that's /FILM, who have a regular section on their website called Superhero Bits. And the guys who did the Superhero Bits, who are also comic fans, got together and did a podcast episode for the Slash Film, where they basically spend an hour talking about what is going on. And I've never learned so much about comics in such a short time period. But man, it's going to be a good sort of 3 or 4 years, I'll tell you that. So, Captain America 2, they have categorically ruled out the Winter Soldier, and they've categorically ruled out Bucky as making any more of a strong appearance. Now, if people who aren't aware of this sort of thing, the Winter Soldier is a storyline that I recently just read, because Charlotte gets a comic collection, sort of monthly comic collection thing, and one of the Captain America ones was Winter Soldier, and it's about basically the Robin to Captain America's Batman. During the Second World War was this young kid called Bucky, and he ends up becoming, through various different things, frozen in ice, rethawed, hired by the Soviets. He became an assassin, reprogrammed to fight the West, and sort of instigated quite a lot of the skirmishes in the Cold War, etc., etc. And he's put into cryogenic freezing in between instances.
You mean Bucky, the guy who died in the Captain America film?
Yes.
If he were to return, do they usually resurrect him in most Captain America storylines? Or something?
Did you see a body?
They only resurrect him in the one.
Yeah, and that's when the Russian submarines find him, because he was supposed to be on the plane that went down in the Arctic with Captain America on it. They find him floating in the ocean somewhere, and he's perfectly preserved.
Right.
So they completely ruled out that storyline, and potential of using any other Captain America villains wasn't really discussed. The only one they mentioned is some guy called the Baron, who has a burnt face and wears a giant pink veil and headdress, and is little bits extrovert for the sort of more gritty Marvel universe, unfortunately. So it is likely that Captain America 2 is going to play off the theme developed in the Avengers of S.H.I.E.L.D. researching Hydra technology, i.e. the Phase 2 weaponry, and Captain America not really being happy about this. Now, there's a whole section of the Marvel Universe called the Civil Wars, where the government decides, much akin to the X-Men 3 plot, that superheroes all need to be registered and they all need to have their sort of mundane identities recorded and they need to be tracked so they can become accountable, so they can be sued, etc., etc.
Sorry, I tuned out for 2 minutes, and when I came back, you were talking about, what's that, The Incredibles?
I didn't say The Incredibles.
No, but that's the plot for it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Pretty
that.
much. Well, that and X-Men.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, X-Men 3. So the idea of the Civil War being Captain America doesn't want to reveal who his true identity is, and becomes renegade, and is hunted down by superheroes, members of the Avengers teams like Iron Man and Thor, who have revealed their secret identity and are working for the government. And so you could see a whole film, potentially, of Iron Man beating the crap out of Captain America. It doesn't sound great, does it?
I don't think they're going to do that. That's been done too many times in
Yes.
comic book things, the idea of superheroes having to fight the system and register and all that jazz. Really? Do you think they're going to do it again?
I think all the infighting we got in the Avengers is as awesome as the infighting is going to get. They got all the sort of really big sort of battle questions out of the way. Like, what the hell does happen when Thor hits Captain America's shield with his hammer?
A fuck-off huge sound-wavy explosion-y thing, apparently.
Yeah. I love how it kind of makes sense, because he's hitting his shield with a big giant hammer, but the shield doesn't vibrate. So like, in sort of comic book logic, all the energy is going to be diverted away from Captain America. I was so pleased to see the return of genuine comic book logic to this film, like Tony Stark's suit being shot by lightning and getting more power. That only happens in comic book fights. It's so good.
I did think at that point watching that, is he going to explode? Because it was unmovable object, unstoppable force sort of situation. Good fight, though. So, yeah, they don't really have any other ideas about Captain America, apart from the fact that it's going to be that, as I said, quote-unquote, fish-out-of-water story. About him being all sort of, oh, Nick, what's going on? What are these car things? And he'd be like, shut your face, Steve. They had cars in the 40s. And I'll never do my Nicolas Cage as Nick Fury. That's it's not enough to say when it's going to be good or bad, but there's certainly not anything to get excited about yet. And I do agree with Charlotte. Civil Wars sounds like a bit of a mess.
I just don't understand how they're going to do that, and then they're going to come back to the Avengers and do that.
Well, Thor is sort of Thor 2. They were talking about there won't be any new villains, and it's going to be another film with Loki in it. And that's fine. I mean, I like Loki, and I don't really think any more villains need to be introduced into the Thor line of things, because you've got the Warriors 3, you've got Asgard, and that whole sort of more mythical setting in the Marvel Universe. That is a gateway. Sorry?
There's a great deal to explore.
Yeah, exactly. There's a gateway to all of the stuff that kicks off out in space in the Marvel Universe, so potentially they can go in that direction. The only thing they did say was the main theme will be, quote-unquote, the saga of Asgard. So it may well be more stuff to do with the Frost Giants and things like that. Which would be interesting, because I like the Frost Giants. I thought they were quite cool.
The interesting thing is that even though Loki's already been in 2 films as the main antagonist, I honestly feel that there's still room to explore his character in a really good way. So, and that's not to say that his character was lacking in the other 2 films. I think that could work for Thor 2 or whatever.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be called something other than Thor 2, but we never know. Iron Man 3 has already started filming. It started filming last week. So all of this is pretty much certain now. It's been hammered out as for certain. But Iron Man 3 is going to be following, again, another one of these lovely comics that Charlotte keeps lending me. Was an Iron Man one, following a storyline called The Extremists. And the basic premise being, scientist creates nanotechnology style thing that you inject into yourself and gives you superpowers. It's another one along the lines of people trying to recreate the Captain America formula. And during the Extremists storyline, a villain has it injected into him, beats the crap out of Iron Man, and then Iron Man needs to have it injected into him, otherwise he will die. This basically gives Tony Stark superpowers over technology. The ability to control his suit with his mind and have it live in his skin and then suddenly explode out around him and things like that. And it's like the 3rd film in the Iron Man series, and now he gets proper superpowers. It just sounds so good. So
the thing that makes me feel dubious about that is that the Iron Man films were always so based in reality, and that sounds sort of almost supernatural in its power.
Yeah, but they get around it by saying nanotechnology. So I agree. I agree what you're saying, but
nanotechnology is basically tiny wizards.
Yes, tiny wizards or Borg drones. One of them.
I just don't think that makes a very interesting storyline, to be honest. The Iron Man suit already is pretty much touch of a button. There it is.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they make it slightly faster and we're all going to go, that's amazing. We're going to go, well, yeah, it's kind of the same, but now it's kind of icky. It's under his skin. That's what I'm going to do.
I mean, you're not going to like what else is going to turn up in it, because the two villains that have been confirmed is Guy Pearce and James Badge Dale, two actors, are going to be playing Cold Blood 7 and Firepower. Cold Blood 7 being a half cyborg assassin with half a robotic face and a robotic arm, which I think turns into a gun. And Firepower basically just looks like a giant trash can with guns on it. So there's also Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin, but he's been confirmed as a secondary villain. So he's probably going to be... Yeah, I know. He's probably going to be the villain that Tony Stark has to deal with, in the same way that people keep saying in The Dark Knight Rises, Selena Kyle is going to be the villain that Christian Bale God damn it, Bruce Wayne has to deal with, as opposed to Batman having to deal with, in the sort of more economic side of things. So
I gotta be brutally honest. I would love another Iron Man film. Everything you've told me about it so far does not inspire me to be hopeful about it.
Yeah, well, the news that has literally just broken as we're recording this will not make you any happier. There are some spy photos from the set, and it showed a couple of characters that I haven't even named yet, who are apparently in this film. So everything I've said there could be completely off topic, and Cold Blood 7 and Firepower could actually be different people. These photos seem to confirm that they are different people, but I'm going on what's been said by these guys' opinions. As I said, all still, there's no third-hand information. So War Machine's going to come back as well. So we get Don Cheadle back in the silver suit, probably. Or they may well up it to the black and gold suit.
I would love to see Ben Kingsley, because he is a brilliant actor. But
agreed, but do you not think he'll just be the Hood again?
The Hood?
From Puppets, what are they called? Thunderbirds. Because whenever someone says the Mandarin, all I think of is, bald head, wispy beard, big eyebrows. That's just the Hood, isn't it?
I can't believe you made a Thunderbird reference. That's awesome.
Exactly. So we've just talked about 3 films. Captain 2, Thor 2, and Iron Man 2. Avengers 2, there isn't really much speculation for, other than the fact that Joss Whedon is probably not going to direct it. He hasn't signed on for it, but there is a short list of 12 names, apparently, including, for some reason, Dan Harmon, the main writer behind Community, which I see absolutely no logic in, because I think Community is awful. But I know I'm in the minority there. As far as other people coming back to this series goes, Captain America... I say Captain America, I mean Chris Evans, signed up for a contract for 9 films straight off the bat, and he's been in 3 so far. So we're going to see 6 other films. That's Cap 2 plus Avengers 2 at least, and that leaves 4 films that he could potentially cameo in. So there may well be some team-ups going on in Thor 2 or Iron Man 3 or whatever down the line, or maybe he's just signed up to do 4 Avengers films. We never know, but we can look forward to that. Robert Downey Jr., when he signed up to do Iron Man 1, signed a contract to do 4 films. So Iron Man 1, 2, 3, and Avengers 1. This means that his contract is up after Iron Man 3 finishes, and he can technically walk away. So the studio has said one or two things. There's either going to be a lot of posturing, and he's going to have to come back at severely increased pay, or they're just going to shunt him out of the picture and get somebody else to play Iron Man, which will be a massive travesty, and I don't think is likely. So, that's just further speculation. As I said, I'm just knocking points out of this podcast that Slash Film Lot did.
I think I think that the point that Marvel's trying to make this whole universe of the same people playing the same things, it's like they've gone to a specific concerted effort to go, we will get this actor and he will play this thing, and the continuity, there will be continuity.
Yeah.
Whereas before it's like, well, we're going to have this and then we're going to have a sequel, and then we may have had a trilogy, but to be honest, we hadn't thought that far ahead, so fuck it, we're just going to retcon and try and add some more stuff in. So I don't think they're going to get someone. They may write out Iron Man if they can't afford him, and it's possible that they can't. But I don't think they get someone else to play him. If they do, they're going to get some serious letters from me.
The thing is, Iron Man is kind of like the flagship character for the Avengers. So if they can't have Robert Downey Jr., then in serious danger of kind of the whole idea sort of collapsing in on itself.
He is the biggest name in it, really.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark Ruffalo.
Okay, name me one other thing that Mark Ruffalo's been in.
Shutter Island.
Was he in that?
Yep, he was the buddy cop to Leonardo DiCaprio.
I actually really like Shutter Island.
So did I.
I just would not have known it was Mark Ruffalo.
Does look different, doesn't it?
Speaking of Mark Ruffalo, we can thank ourselves. We can thank the Lord that there's going to be no Hulk reboot. As we discussed earlier, Hulk got enough screen time, we think, or I think at least, in Avengers 1 to sort of warrant not needing a reboot. And also, it has actually been confirmed that the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk 2009 film, I think, is technically canon to Avengers Assemble. Get this.
Well, yeah, they had Tony Stark appear at the end in like a little end of credits bit.
They did, but the scene they cited as being the reason that made it canon is not even in the film. It was just in the trailer, which is a scene where Edward Norton's Banner is wandering across some snowy ground in the Arctic, trying to commit suicide, and he stumbles over and finds Captain America buried in the ice. So, go and watch the trailer for that film. I haven't actually seen it. I've seen the film, I haven't seen the trailer, so I haven't seen that scene yet. But yeah, that's that. There's only like one more thing I wanted to mention, really, about Avengers, which is there is a slot in this movie schedule in the summer of 2014 where Marvel doesn't have a movie ready. And there's been speculation as to what this is possibly going to be. And so far, the most likely candidate is a comic series called Guardians of the Galaxy, which is effectively Marvel's answer to Green Lantern and the Guardians of Oa. And it consists of quite a lot of weird characters. We have Rocket Raccoon, who is just a raccoon, Groot, who is basically an ent, Bug, who is a bug, and Major Victory, who just is Captain America, but slightly differently. And there is like a load of other psychic characters and a very famous character called Adam Warlock as well. Warlock. People are saying that they're going to be chucking this in as a way to expand into the more cosmic and less real end of the Marvel Universe. Because if anybody's seen any of the Spider-Man middle 1990s TV show, the definitive Spider-Man, you will know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of episodes there seems to be a lot of themes, where Spider-Man goes into space or meets the Beyonders or Madam Web, and it's all sort of a bit mystical. And the idea of Guardians of the Galaxy is to potentially open up that side of the universe for sort of exploration. This ties in with the end of Avengers 1, because the very, very last thing you see in Avengers 1 in the post-credits scene is Alexis Denisov's The Other, the leader of the Chitauri, talking to a character. And then right at the last second, the character turns around and says to fight them is to court death, and then smiles. That character is a lovely villain called Thanos, who is regularly fought by the Avengers and fought by Guardians of the Galaxy, of which his daughter is one. And there have been a couple of teasers to Thanos as well in Thor. During the scene where Loki, Thor, and Odin are marching through Odin's vault, you can see a thing called the Infinity Gauntlet, which is Thanos' sort of big bad super weapon. It's basically a glove with some jewels stuck on it, which gives him power over things like time and reality and stuff. Yeah, there's a whole comic book line in which he kills most of the Avengers with this gauntlet, and it requires a lot of co-op and this sort of big team melee style storyline in order to take him down, in which you could see, say in Avengers 3 or 2, the Guardians of the Galaxy teaming up with the Avengers, and you're getting 8 big superheroes in one film just to take down this one big bad. So it doesn't sound like it'll work, but this is what was considered likely on the podcast, which is interesting. So what do we think about Guardians of the Galaxy? Have either of you ever heard of them? Because I sure as hell haven't.
No, that was the first thing that struck me. This sort of foray into sort of Infinity Gauntlet-esque territory marks a very important stage for me in sort of pop culture nerdism stuff, because I've always been like really nerdy, and this is kind of the first time that sort of mainstream media has caught up to me, because I hadn't heard of Thanos or the Infinity Gauntlet before I heard they were going to make films about this. So I'm very proud of mainstream nerd culture. Well done.
I don't think it's likely to happen, to be honest.
I think if they're going to make something that big, they're going to come up against even bigger time constraints, and I pretty much only trust Joss Whedon to overcome those. So
I think they're trying to effectively boot up a whole other franchise of films. Marvel Studios as a cinema thing, I don't actually think they have the money to try and make it as successful as they've made the Avengers. So
they were bought by Disney. They have more money than God.
But they don't have the fan base, have they?
Yeah, Disney bought them.
I thought they just gave them some money. I didn't realize they'd been bought by them. But no, I just think that it is still effectively a business, and I think it's a waste of their money to try and make a film about things that do not have the big fan base. Like the reason that all the Avengers films have been good is because we knew those guys anyway. Yeah. Who has not heard of Captain America? You could be not at all interested. The same with the Batman and Spider-Man and Superman. They are very famous names, both in and outside the comic book world. These people, we've not heard of them, and we're nerds.
This is exactly the point that they were making as well. These are now B-list superheroes. Who's going to have heard of them?
I would have said before the films came along, Iron Man was kind of in the B list. They should be proud of themselves for putting him in the mainstream spotlight. But I think that's a really good point. This does kind of smack of sort of opening up the market for more toys and comics for people that have never heard of these characters before.
Exactly. I mean, there's currently a mini, like, a Avengers Babies series, like, Muppet Babies was made for younger kids, and things like that. There's currently an animated Avengers TV show which is stupidly popular in the US, and that is introducing hundreds of low-level characters, because obviously Avengers isn't just 5 people, it's about 30 different characters, I think, overall have been in it at various different points, including people like She-Hulk and all this rubbish. But they're sort of building a fan base of younger viewers, and there is also in the works a Disney cartoon 2D animators, not Pixar style or anything like that, but proper sort of original Disney animated film based on one of these people in the Marvel Universe that hasn't yet been on screen time. People reckon it's going to be Henry Pym.
I think it'll make a very good film, but
No, God no, but if it can draw in hundreds of thousands of screaming children on its first day, then it'll make a killing. Because if they're all hooked on this, on the younger side of the Marvel sort of zeitgeist, then it's going to be quite a killing for them. So I think introducing Guardians of the Galaxy, yes, it's either they're going to do it to try and start another franchise.
But I don't see why they would.
It does see a stupid idea.
Not only that, but I'm looking at the Wikipedia now. Do you know how many times their series has been cancelled? They have like 5 issues, and then they cancel it, and then they appear in a couple of other people's books, and then they tried to reboot it in 2008, and that lasted for 25 issues.
Blimey.
They ain't going to make it. They don't have the back. Like you were saying, Iron Man before the films wasn't necessarily the hugest name out there, but he had a lot of backstory that they can draw on. Unless they're going to start with Guardians of the Galaxy and go, yeah, we drew them a couple of times and now we're going to make films about them. I really don't see. It's effectively like making a completely different film. It might as well not be Marvel.
Yeah, very true.
When I first saw the after credits thing, I thought it was the Red Skull. I thought he would be the most likely person to bring back for another film as the antagonist.
Well,
I thought
that's
at the end of Captain America, the Mystic Cube might have just teleported him to the place where those faceless aliens are, rather than just blowing him up.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see how that was potentially true, and there are storylines in which the Red Skull exists as a spirit in the cube and within other people. Again, another one of these lovely comics that Charlotte has lent me, and they're lovely hardback and just gloriously smelling. They smell so lovely.
They do smell good. They smell like care. They smell like well-crafted comic.
Yes, exactly. And the Red Skull is actually in this cube, and he's infected this businessman's thoughts. The cube is called a tesseract. It's not a cosmic cube. It's tesseract. I know they're the same thing, but that it just irritates me because I'm a pedant about these things. But yeah, he's in the Tesseract. So there's all this potential going on. The thing that confuses me so much about the Marvel Universe is the fact that there's not one storyline. there's like Marvel, and then there's like, if you think of Spider-Man, there's Spider-Man, then Ultimate Spider-Man, then Fantastic Spider-Man, then the Amazing Spider-Man, and they're all got different origin stories, different art styles, different, this, that, and the other, and it gets confusing sometimes. So we can
like in the Captain America comic, Nick Fury is white.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. He's like that really weird-looking Aryan style of white that was prevalent at the time.
He was white in the 1990 Spider-Man as well. He had like a shock of white hair on the side of his head, kind of like Mr. Fantastic. But
oh yeah, that reminds me. Speaking of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, both owned by Fox, never going to be seen in the Marvel Universe, sadly. Though Fox is making a Fantastic Four reboot at the current. Maybe Chris Evans could star in that, because he is the only person to have played two major superheroes in different films in the same universe.
Yeah, well, as long as this sort of rivalry between the two holds up, it means that this sort of character clash won't be a problem until Chris Evans has to start playing two different characters in the same film.
Exactly. I mean, thankfully it's a reboot, so they're going to completely scrap it and do new actors, and hopefully we will get something a little bit more interesting than Doctor Doom. I don't like Doctor Doom, to be honest. I mean, the important thing being is Spider-Man has the biggest rogue gallery of all of the villains, according to these guys. I mean, you could probably name 15 off the top of your head, just from the limited exposure that I've had. I could probably name 15 villains, and I couldn't name that for anybody else apart from maybe X-Men. But it's such a shame that Fox, I think it's either Fox or Sony, or might be, owns all of these villains, because they were divvied up when Spider-Man was sort of fresh in cinemas, and Marvel was working on Iron Man, so they divvied them all up in a legal battle, and it was very arbitrary.
In terms of the Avengers sort of storyline potentially getting out of hand, I heard Joss, he wrote, this is sort of from a perspective of if I were going to write Avengers 2, not that I expect to write Avengers 2. Yeah. He said he would make it sort of more personal, more painful and darker and that kind of thing. But he said he would make it on a much smaller scale. Like,
oh, wow.
That would be his idea, and I think that would be wiser. I mean,
he's done the big flashy one, now he wants to do the character study.
Well, I was going to say that we've already done quite a lot of character exploration. Yeah, Charlotte was right in saying that the Avengers is kind of the origin story, but rather than for one character, for how they interact with each other. And so he doesn't need to waste time trying to build up their characters in the film. He can just have them play out the story. I don't know, it just seems, I don't know, I keep coming back to this whole timescale thing. It just seems like it would make more sense to have it be on a smaller scale, because you need time to incorporate a viable villain to make them plausible.
I would definitely say villains are a serious issue in the Marvel Universe.
I mean, like, there was supposed to be this whole personal struggle with Thor having to fight his own brother again, and that didn't actually come across all that much in the Avengers. There was they had some hard words on top of that rock, which was a nice scene before the awesome scene where the Avengers fight each other, and then they're fighting on top of Stark Towers, and Loki stabs Thor a bit, and that was about it.
And then the Hulk turns up, and then everybody's happy again. Yeah, so I think...
So in short, don't leave us, Joss. We need help with this.
Yeah, I hope he stays on, because I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. I mean, it depends on how Shane Black does with Iron Man 3, so we'll just have to wait and see with that one. I don't want them to give it to someone like, what's his face from Community? His name I've already forgotten. He's instantly just been kicked off Community for being one of the hardest people to work with. It was so funny. They announced it at 10 p.m. on a Friday night, so he would literally have no chance to reply until Saturday morning to make a public statement reply. And he got the news via Twitter whilst he was on a plane, sat in the runway, about to leave the US. So it was like, yeah, fuck you, Dan. That's right, his name's Dan. It's like, you're not going to get any replies out for this. So I really don't see how someone of that sort of attitude, I've been led to believe, has that sort of attitude to be, anywhere near capable of commanding the reins of such a big franchise. Kevin Feige will make all the right decisions. He's done so far. We shall see. What about the next 4 films, Thor, Captain America 2, Iron Man 3, or Avengers 2, are you most looking forward to? Which one's hot on your list, Alex?
I'd have to say, this is a surprising one for me, but I'm looking forward to Thor 2 the most.
Me too.
Yeah, just because I think there's the most to explore.
What about you, Charlotte?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm going to pick for you. You're going to be excited about Captain America, because I'm not going to be.
Better start making up some reasons.
Exactly.
About Captain America.
I'm not a fan.
Fine. He's great as a straight man, but I don't.
Ha ha ha! Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory is gay.
What?
Yeah, apparently that's news. You said straight man, so I just made a joke of it. Anyway,
that's not a
joke. Stating a thing is not a joke.
You can just put ha 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 on the end, and everyone will just go, well, that weird episode of homophobia was hilarious. That's not how it works.
It wasn't homophobia, I'm more making a joke about the fact that it was apparently news.
When you say ha ha ha, he's gay, though, it doesn't really come across as a scathing critique on the social.
No, I thought it was obvious.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying, I always knew he was gay. I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying I could quite easily see him being gay and having had a 10-year relationship, is what he came out and said, with a loving partner. It was like, oh, that's interesting. It wasn't a case of, oh my god, how could this clearly, definitely straight man, definitely not gay man suddenly be gay? It wasn't the biggest revelation to me. I just found it funny that suddenly it was news. Shall I close the show?
The Avengers was awesome. Everybody go see it. That's about it.
Yes, everybody go see it.
I love Hawkeye.
Charlotte
I know you don't,
Hawkeye.
but I love Hawkeye. It's like I kind of had to defend him.
Right, so that was our Avengers. I can't say Avengers hour because I don't know how long it's going to be, but our take on the Avengers and Marvel Universe for a little bit. So if you enjoyed that, make sure you like us on Facebook at facebook.com/IIMCI. We also have our other side blogs, edits, things like that are knocking around the internet, which are on our Podomatic page in the favourite links. And Podomatic is ifitmovescritique.podomatic.com. Please make sure to subscribe to us via iTunes. You can follow me on Twitter at Rossage99 or friend me on Facebook. Most of you probably know who I am. Alex, got anything you want to share with the ladies and gentlemen, or are you still working on the .text file from the first episode?
Nope, just want to be.
Okay, just needs to be. Charlotte is Charlotte. She does some things. They're also in all of our favourite links. So thank you very much for listening to us this evening, and we shall see you next time.